I was in the board farm at the time, and George's mom was leaving. Yeah, she was.
All right, before we get started, people that showed up on time. All right, so we'll get started. I'll ask Laura to open us up for prayer.
Oh, could stand, could stand, could stand. Golden Scatter, the Amako Copa, Muta e Amish Fish Papaza, Utlush Captain's White and Tally to Nikon Tumor Flash, Shout and Flash Push Collat Mute Tumor Flash Muta Push Nikon Tumor Flash, Quick Cat, Hikot Gas, Hot Miss Gasly La Flock Shon is Kicklet Gasla, Cooks and Cow Tackam Stamp, which Arthur's Fish Gate, Amish is Item Scatter, Amish Payum, Cooks the Mut Collat Tackam Nation Nikon, on all issues.
Thanks, Laura. For those who don't know me, I'm Ernest Armin. I'm from the Blackwood Champlain. I'm the implementation manager for Flat Government Services and been there just over 3 years. I'll maybe have my team introduce themselves, and I'll start with our board chair.
My name is Daryl Bob. I'm the Chief of Catholic Community for the Statium. I also sit as the Statium Government Services Chairman for the PC Participating Community.
All right, we'll go backwards.
Yeah, we just need to walk in front of this. Hi, my name is Janice Whitney. I'm from the community of Tinket, and I'm working as a relations manager.
Shklasalam Penishwachi-chan, Hoishimutgan, Shlakim, Laura John Shaman Shklachi-chan, the Shlakim Education Training Manager.
All right, we also have two of our members from our partners. We have Al Gold and Jeremy Hyman, and they'll be talking a bit later. And so we'll get started. So we'll start off with the chair's opening remarks.
Thank you all for coming out, and appreciate the commitment to come out to listen to the presentations. And I believe we're webcasting live, which is something that we want to try and look forward to in technology to get a hold of our members. So part of this, Ernest and I have been talking about it for quite some time, to look at bringing back the agreement to the community members that are not within their own communities, so that we can create a communication with the members off reserve to see if, so that you understand where the agreement's at, or where the staff is at, the work that the staff are doing under this hydro agreement. It's good because a lot of the votes came off reserve. You know, you are part of the nation. You're part of our communities. And we want to make every effort to not have anybody left out. To close that communication gap is so critical in the future for this organization, for the Staff and Chiefs Council, and the relationship that's been created with BC Hydro. The benefits that derive from this agreement, I think, are starting to come to life. We're starting to create opportunities for our members. We're starting a working relationship with BC Hydro. You know, they're not always good, but there's opportunity to make it better. And that's what we look at. That's what Ernest and the staff do. They work on the agreement. They work through the agreement with what we have. The Staff and Chiefs Council, has appointed a chair, a board of directors consisting of 10 members from different communities and participating communities. And the agreements that are there, the certainty agreement, the relationship agreement, all of that we work through. Creating accountability, I think, is the key to the success of the Staff and Government Services. And we want to bring it to a level where a lot of people start to understand what we're trying to accomplish, what's been in the agreement. The chiefs have put a lot of years in negotiating with BC Hydro to find a mutual ground with an organization that came and did devastating impacts to our communities. They've considered the one place, for example, where I always refer to it as Mission Dam. I never ever really knew it as Terizaki Dam. I don't know if anybody else sees that, but I've always looked at it as Mission Dam. But the Terizaki Dam in the Alexander family that flowed and lived on that line, the community there called it the land of plenty. It was just lush. Now it's buried in poop and contaminated water, the way I look at it. However, we did come to an agreement with Hydro on that, and we worked through what we have to work through to have a better working relationship with BC Hydro, a corporation and arm of the government. So I'm glad that we've chose to do this bit of a traveling tour for our off-reserve members, because you're key. We have to understand that, because without you, there wouldn't be a Staff and Government Services. We're raising our hands up to all of you that came out, listened to the presentations previously, prior to the vote, and now here we are again. And, we hope that no stone goes unturned to close that communication gap. That's the statement that I made at the annual General Assembly in Lulwood, that we would close the communication gap to our members so that our members have a full understanding of what's going on. There's no miscommunication, there's no misunderstanding, there's no kerfuffles around what are we doing. Let's be very clear, be open, be transparent to all of our members, as well as working with BC Hydro. So we feel that transparency is going to create bigger opportunities for our communities. And as everybody knows, this is probably one of the major agreements probably in BC with this corporation. So, and as you'll see through the presentations of our staff, there has been a lot of work done. We've, prior to, I think, first coming on board as the chair about 2.5 years ago, our commitment was to commit to policy development for the organization, so it has a framework to move forward and grow on. Now that that's been complete, all of our policies have been developed, they've been created to the standards of today. Now we're going to move forward with closing the communication gap. What does closing the communication gap mean? How are we going to commit to communicating to the officer members? And one of the good things that we're doing is we got a young fella here from Pat. He's live streaming. Awesome. We have to get it out there. We have to show the members we're here. We have to show the members that we're giving our commitment as the board. I, as the chair of the board itself, the implementation managers, the managers, and the staff. Our commitment is to the organization, 100% to the organization. We have to, in order for us to grow, opportunity for the members. And most recently, the Staff and Chiefs Council has created the Staff and Eco Resources, which is another arm of the staffing nation for creating possible business opportunities and growth in the nation. So I'm looking forward to that and seeing where that falls within our organization to have growth and employment opportunities. We have most talented people in our nation, I believe. We have to capture that. How do we capture it? We have to commit from the chair all the way down to the staff, from the staff all the way up to the board of directors to the chair, in order for us to create ample opportunity for our members. It is priority that we start to change the game. And having a good working relationship with BC Hydro, having a better communication with BC Hydro, is going to close that gap. Creates a window of opportunity, creates a better relationship, amongst the communities, creates a better relationship between BC Hydro and the Saskatchewan Government Services, possibly more growth in the nation to create better living standards. That's what we look for. That's my vision as a chief in my community, as well as the chair. How do we close the communication gap? There's so much work to do. The work never stops, but it only gets better. It requires a lot of commitment. It requires creativity and a bit of give and take from both sides, probably in Hydro and the Saskatchewan Government Services. But we'll see. You know, it's the agreement's clearly written as to how we will have a relationship together, and the opportunities that come from that is up to us and how successful we can be as a board of directors and organization through our implementation manager. You know, we have chosen, I always like to say, we have chosen this time to be here. We have physically chosen time to be here on this earth today. And I'm excited about where we're at. I think we can do more. I always never stop wanting more. What is that opportunity? What is that vision? What is the vision that makes us think outside the box to be creative for Saskatchewan? What is the vision? That's what I ask myself for the next year. As the chair of this board, now I'm asking, what is the vision? What is the goal? You know, first it was policy developing a government structure. Now it's communication. I'm already pre-planning now for what's next. What's our next step? What's our next goal? How are we going to get it? Who's going to be working with us? What's the opportunity that our people have? We've created that through commitment from previous chiefs before me. And I really raised my hands to the communities that were directly impacted, that said, we will not move forward without all of Saskatchewan. That was a good commitment from those communities to offer us that opportunity to be part of the Chalaf, Ridge River, Cayush, Inkit, Uguayguat. The directly impacted community said, we go together as a nation. That vision is amazing, because when you look at that vision and you think about that vision, today the Teleporting decision says nation. We were already there. That's amazing. I thought back at it and I thought about it and I said, yes, we are already in process. We've walked the land. We've picked the mushrooms on the land. We've picked the horseshoe. We picked the black caps. We had all of this new medicine that creates our identity. Our identity, that what we do when we walk on the land. Now we need to create an economic identity of Saskatchewan through the government services. Create opportunity for our members. You know, I always like to tell people, when I grew up with my ripped clothes and my ugly runners and whatnot, I always thought we were poor. I always thought we were poor. But when my granny opened that food cellar and walked down there, and there was about 500 jars of food in there, man, oh man, was I ever rich. You know, that's what we have in our territory. We need to create more to that, because times are changing. So, through the Saskatchewan Government Services, as the chair, I can promise you nothing but hard work. That's what we offer, is hard work. And that's what we expect. And that's where we're going. There's ample opportunity out there. We have a good working relationship, you know, and with BC High, currently we've had no real issues to deal with, you know, maybe other than Al Bolt getting a nuisance. But all in all, members, thank you for coming out. Thank you for taking the time to listen to myself as the chair and enjoy the presentations of our staff, of our implementation manager, and so on down the line. But I raise my hands to you once again and thank you for your time, for your commitment to be here, and not only that, but for your mark on the ballot to say we agree with this agreement. Now it's our time to show you what we've done, and that's our intention today, is to show you what we have done and possibly what we can do. So follow us on our website. Jan will, or one of the employees will put the website out there, and we have it on Facebook and whatnot. So we want to close that gap. All I'm saying is we've got to close that gap this year. We have to make it more, we have to evolve more in communication. That's our intention. So with that, thank you for taking the time to listen to the opening remarks on behalf of the board of directors. And thank you, and have a good, happy holiday. Merry Christmas to you and your loved ones, and all of that good Christmas stuff. Nasty, all my relations.
Thanks, Daryl. Yeah. So, if you thought Daryl's speech was long, mine's even longer. Just kidding. You know, it's good to have involvement of our governance. And, you know, I think one of the interesting things that I've seen in the work that we've done over the last few years is that SGS is built on a good governance model. We consider ourselves a results-based organization. We're building capacity. We're a learning organization as well. And we support nation building. And nation building can mean a lot of things, and we have a mandate in certain aspects around it that I'll be going over generally and what we're doing. We've got a PowerPoint. It's only 3 slides, but however, those 3 slides cover an awful lot of stuff. So one of the key things that we understand in the agreement is that there's a stallion authority that's identified. The stallion authority is really, in fact, the Standard Chiefs Council. They're almost the same. And there's a lot of different components, different agreements, and I'll talk about some of the key points or some of the key ones. I'll be making reference to this report that we've given out. It's referred to as the SGS Relationships Mandate Accountabilities Document. And it will be posted to the website. So if anybody has interest in reviewing this document, I'm not going to go through the whole thing. I'm just going to hit the highlights. It'll be found on our website, and we'll get that information posted properly. So May 10th, 2011, we signed the agreements. And it took a few months to get things started. The first staff were not hired until October 31st of 2011. SGS was created and came online in January of 2012. The present form of our governance structure, our board of directors, has only really been operational for about 2 years now. And so that's sort of the evolution. And the reason why I mentioned the Stratton Authority, because they are the ones who are responsible for the implementation of the agreement, and they're accountable for the agreement, and they're the ones who sought to get the ratification support of all the Oakridge. And so in the way the system works, they are the ones responsible. They understood up front that they don't have to pass the infrastructure to do that work, so they delegated to the Stratton Government Services and created that organization to carry out the work. They govern that relationship by making sure the accountabilities are there, and we are just finalizing the delegation agreement from the Stratton Authority to step to SGS. Some of the key things that I think are really important to understand is the mission of SGS is basically we support the vision of the nation. And we have a mission, we don't have our own vision. We support one vision. And that's the kind of stuff that we've been trying to promote with all the different entities that work with Stratton and have that Stratton brand. Is we're here to support the vision of the nation. And the work that we do is different, but we all achieve one vision. And so that's how we start looking, that's how we create alignment of how we start achieving nation going forward. So our mission is pretty simple. We're an efficient organization that coordinates and provides advisory services, capacity building, partnership and relationship building, and cultivates opportunities in areas of land resources, heritage and culture, stewardship, high relationship, education and training, and service delivery programs. And on the replication process was, in my view and our view, that there's four key areas that were to be addressed by the ratification of these agreements. Number one, long-term environmental enhancement plans to help restore land, water, fish, wildlife, and vegetation. 2, a heritage and culture plan to help preserve, protect, and promote Stratton culture. 3, a relations agreement to assist in developing a long-term sustainable relationship between the Stratton and BC Hydro. And 4, an education and training component to build capacity within the communities. In my view, the education training piece is something where we can achieve most results. If we look at the other components, to do those things, we need to have training and education. In order to help support all of the Oakridge, I think the best way for that is going through education training opportunities. And so we spend a lot of time and focus on that kind of work. We're going to talk about Stratton Authority, which is basically the Chiefs Council. We got the delegation agreement, then we have the SGS board. They take care of all the operations, governance. It's not that they don't do the operations, but they ensure all the policies, procedures, the accountability reporting, and all those good things, and also driving the directives on where the organization goes is done by that board. I am the one employee for that board, and all the SGS staff work for me. This is how we separate business from politics and making sure that the work is being done. SGS board, we have currently 10 members, 1 from each participating communities, and as you already know, Daryl is the chair. Governance is a key thing about this whole process. We had to make sure we got it done right up front. In the agreement, there's some governance aspects incorporated as well. The first level or first layer, the highest layer of governance in the agreements is what we call the principals. The principals have responsibility for the overall general oversight of the implementation process. So currently we have the principals, there's 1 from each party, 1 from BC Hydro. The head of Aboriginal Relations is Lyle Barrick. Is he the head of Aboriginal Relations or is this? He's the director. He's the director. So Lyle Barrick is the principal, and then from our side we have Cookney Perry Dan from Cayush, who's just filling that role. So the principals meet twice a year, and they talk generally about the implementation process and any challenge issues that need to be identified and worked on. And then the next layer we have down is the steering committee. The steering committee is comprised of 6 members. We have 3 members from BC Hydro, and of course we have 3 members from Stratton. Currently we have, on Hydro side, there's senior managers from within the company. And from our side, we have 3 members of our executive board of SGS. We have Daryl, Rebecca Barley, and we also have Chief Michelle Edwards from Cayush. So they're on our executive, so they work in the steering committee. The steering committee is responsible for ensuring that The implementation team is doing the work of meeting the obligations, responsibilities that are identified in the agreement, plus also looking at enhancing and strengthening our relationships. The relations agreement is to me, is the key agreement, and in my view, it is worth more than the comprehensive settlements in the long term. The implementation team is the implementation manager, of course, and our also relations manager. So we have Al Bolt from BC Hydro. We have Jerry Hyam, who's the relations manager. Janice is our relations manager and implementation manager. We're responsible for making sure that the work plan is there and we are meeting the obligations laid out in the agreements. And we were accountable to the steering committee first. There's a number of agreements, and I already mentioned the relations agreement is one of the key ones. It identifies a lot of significant changes. You know, Daryl kind of hit on this a bit earlier in his discussion, but we've gone from being adversaries to partners once we ratified that agreement. And that learning process takes some time to implement. We're only into year 2 basically of our agreement, and we've actually accomplished a lot of good things. And we'll hear about some of those things a bit later. Another key agreement is the certainty agreement, and this is really what it comes out to is that we've agreed to let Hydro do their work and maintain and operating all their existing footprint. That includes transmission lines, powerhouses, distribution, the whole works. And so certainty is a very key piece of this agreement. Another key thing, the agreement really was around the water use license. In my view, that's what really drove the process initially, was the water license, which basically details out how the water system is used that BC Hydro uses. And a lot of the projects that we have are on water use program. We have 18 contracts. We're currently monitoring of information, gathering data that's going to help inform the change that are needed in operational improvements to meet some of those 4 key objectives we talked about earlier. So those are very key. Key thing that in my view, one of the key things for us, there's a small item in the agreement around education and training. And in the agreement, it talks about the development of a 20-year sustainable education training program. It's no small item in the agreement, but it's a small item in the agreement, but it's big implications. One of the key things at SGS is that we implement agreements of Stephen. Currently, we have an agreement on the hydro settlement. One of the things that we discovered, in order for us to develop a 20-year sustainable education training program, is more than just the relationship with BC Hydro. Hydro has a want and a need to have more staff employed and working for them in jobs and careers and contracts. And so that's what the purpose of that piece of the agreement is about. However, in order to create a sustainable 20-year strategy, it needs more than just that. And so we really did a lot of work, we did a lot of research. BC Hydro helped us do that work. And we ended up establishing a family education training framework, which clearly identified some of the big information, what are the industries out there, what are education levels, and identify some barriers and all these types of things. And from there, we were able to develop the 7 objectives for the framework. And there's different things from prenatal to lifelong learning to helping create systems to support education training. And Laura will talk a bit about that later. But in order for us to get there, we had to get an agreement with Stephen to create this program. So we've been developing, we've actually getting endorsements from all the chiefs of every community on the Australian Education Accord, which is basically a high-level agreement that says that we're going to work together as a nation to improve education, learning outcomes. And so it's very significant, and I think we've got a majority of the community signed up now. The next phase of the work is that we've identified there's going to be sort of 7 key strategies that we develop for the nation. And Laura is currently developing some work to engage communities to help inform that work. Moving on, another key thing that's been a key piece of work for us, which is foundation building, is information sharing agreements. One of the key things for us is to ensure that our knowledge is incorporated into different projects and planning, but it also needs to be able to inform projects and planning for BC Hydro. But a key thing around our traditional knowledge and standard knowledge is that we need to make sure it's protected. We need to know who owns the information. We need to make sure that they give us permission to use that information. And so all this kind of protocol that goes with it. And so we've been spending for at least 2 years now, developing an information sharing agreement, and it should be rolled out soon. It's very fundamental for the work that we do. Because our number 2 area of work is information gathering, and to ensure that we can use that to help inform decision making. Another key thing for us is Daryl talked about communications. Communication is always a challenge for any organization. One of our biggest challenges is ensuring that we have internal communications amongst our communities. Janice has come on as a relations manager, and we're currently developing community protocols with every community to identify what expectations are. How do we work, and how do we coordinate, and how do we best communicate in their communities, and who do we have to deal with for decision making. And so those things will come back and be very helpful in strengthening our governance, not only for SGS, but also as a nation. We have clearly identified education training plan. I'm not going to go too much more about that. We have the watershed project, which is a very interesting development project we have. Lita Gomez, our resources manager, is going to talk about that project in a lot of detail, because in my view, it's actually very key for us to develop good systems that we can capture information and be able to share information. The water use plan, I talked about that already. I believe we'll be talking about that as well. And so that's sort of the key stuff. The last sort of thing I want to talk about is there's another small item in the agreement. It's called the sharing of emergency plans with BC Hydro. So we looked at this obligation. We didn't realize how much work it was actually going to be, because there's 3 levels of plans. There's community-based, there's region-based, and then there's a nation-based plan. And we didn't know if communities had plans. So we had to go about helping ensure that communities do have emergency plans. And we were figuring out how we would do this work, because we didn't have those skills and expertise in-house. And so we set out to create partnerships, or find a partner who actually help us with that work. So our first stop, obviously, was the First Nations Emergency Services. We quickly learned, though, that they don't have a lot of resources. They're dependent on Indian Affairs for their funding, and they don't do this type of work on an ongoing basis. Capacity building and training is a big issue. You don't just do it once and that's it. It's an ongoing commitment. And so we quickly found a partnership with the Red Cross. And they're a group that actually does a lot of work that would actually benefit us by being a partner with them. So they provide ongoing training, capacity building. They have protocols in place with the federal government, provincial governments in case of emergencies. And the best thing that we like about the Red Cross is if there's an emergency, they don't just come and help with the emergency and leave you. They ensure that you're prepared and things are ready for the next time. And so we're doing some work with the Red Cross, and Janice will talk about more in the video. One of the key things in the agreement too, we talk about the annual operations update. So in every year, BC Hydro brings all the departments in, they come in and share what the planned works are for the year in this entire system in the territory. And from there, we develop information that we need to share with communities around the opportunities. This year, we finally got to that, meeting that obligation to some degree, and we'll be able to start rolling things out and start building and preparing ourselves to be able to take opportunities and large contracts. There isn't a lot of jobs in BC Hydro, but there's a lot of work in Hydro. But it takes a lot to be qualified and meet all those different things, because it's a lot of high-end work and you gain experience. So there's a lot of things that we have to go through. There's a lot of things we have to start working together on as communities within the nation around this, and that work is going on now. One of our key things is really around reporting and accountability. We have many layers of accountability as an organization. We're accountable to our board. We're accountable to the Stallion Authority. We're accountable to the Stallion Trust. We're accountable to BC Hydro. We're accountable to communities. And we're accountable to all the members. SGS has a lot of accountability and reporting requirements, and we take this to heart. And and our chair talked about we need to improve our communications, and hence, this is and working with BC Hydro, they share the same concerns. We need to make sure people understand what we're doing. We got to start reporting out on results. And so this is our first go around and doing off-reserve presentations. We're actually doing presentations to all the communities as well. And so we really need to start sharing a little more about what the agreements are about, what are we doing, and what we hope to achieve, and what are some of the results. In our communication methods, we start thinking about, well, in the past, when we give a report, right, everybody's got one, and you get a nice report, and all this other good stuff, and we send you all kind of things, and tell you to go to our website, but chances are, we won't do that. So we figured, what's a better way to communicate? And so every year we have an AGM. You know, we had our second AGM. Was it the second AGM? Second AGM. I was at Chiefs Council, and we had it in Teakit in when was that? End of October. The third one? Oh, the third one. My God, time flies when you have fun. But you know, when we first started out, we said, we knew up front who we were accountable to. The best way, our end all be all was the AGMs. But you know, we get 200 people there, and you know, we got 6,000 staff now. So we had to figure out better ways to deal with that. So Janice came on, and her primary role is really about getting people informed on Facebook. She keeps her webpage. She provides newsletters and all these different things. And we got to create a database of all our connections. And so we also want you to sign in. If we don't have your emails, we would love to have them, have your permission to be able to send you stuff. And so Janice takes care of that stuff. But one of the cool things we've done this year, we've created video presentations. And so we've captured different results, different things. And it really makes presentations a little more fun because everybody's getting the same messages. So basically, we're recreating the AGM in a box. I don't know what else to say. But anyways, that's it for me for now. I'll let my counterpart, Al Bull, give you an update from Michael's perspective and how things are going. Doesn't matter.
I think the video camera set up for sitting position. So my name's Al Bull. I'm the North Regional Manager for Aboriginal Relations for BC Hydro. And it's a privilege for me to be back together with the staff and community. So I was involved for several years with the negotiations and gave me good insight. I think we traveled 3, perhaps 4 times to each community during the ratification. And as Chief General Bob mentioned, the off-reserve vote played a significant part in that. We were there very, very late, or early into the morning when we counted the last box. And it was very, very quiet. One at a time, the votes would come up. Yes, no, yes, yes, yes. Oh, and I kept a mental tally of where we were, and it was, I think the first person that joined up when there was one vote, yes, that carried the agreement, she just jumped up and she says, landslide, one vote ahead. And then we had a number of more yeses, and this is a right to the final vote, so it was a real privilege to be part of that. And then I was reassigned to other tasks within BC Hydro, and then just about a year and a half ago, I was given the opportunity to come back and work with the staff and communities. There's been some reorganization at our company. So I feel a real privilege to come back, to see faces I recognize, to visit the communities, and then reestablish the relationships that are very, very important to both BC Hydro and the staff and relations. Darryl mentioned the fact that the relations agreement was pretty special. I thought it was overemphasizing that during the negotiations, but I've seen that the emphasis that they put on it then is just being reinforced today and throughout the last little while. I've been back to see how important relationships are, and then communicating out what those relationships mean and the successes that both staff and BC Hydro have had. So it's I committed to just update folks a bit about how this agreement has changed our company. I think the number one thing for us is it's given our managers, our field staff, and our executive an opportunity to share information more openly and more transparent way, so that they're not afraid of, well, can I share this or can't I share this? They have the opportunity to share this. In fact, we're somewhat obligated in the agreement, but it's really given us as field staff and Jeremy and I a lot of leverage to be able to sometimes pry information out of our company, but more so having it freely offered and people being a part of the community. So We look forward to operational update, and we're going to change a bit of the venue. It's an open house, and anybody's invited. It's usually held in Lillooet. And I think the opportunity exists for anybody to come up, and then we'll bring project managers that actually have work on the ground at the time, and they can help people sort out, both from the community and the personal level, what opportunities there might be. So it's a privilege to be back here. We share the goal of closing the communication gap. We've seen that demonstrated by staff meeting. And we've invited Janice to join Jeremy and I to visit our field operations around the staff communities. Well, only if Janice says so. So, Andrew is he's always invited. But we're looking forward to having our staff get to know the staff as well as Jeremy and I have, and just establish a rapport with the communities themselves, so that we have less and less work to do, and it's more integrated until we actually do our work. So again, thanks for having us here today, and feel free to ask Jeremy any questions as he goes through the business. Thanks, Ernest.
All right, Al. Okay, Janice gets the easy job because most of her stuff's on video.
Well, when you're photogenic like Janice, right?
All right, hope we have enough capacity to operate this thing. Oh.
Hi, my name is Janice Whitney, and I'm the Relations Manager for SGS. I'm the main point of contact for SGS, BC Hydro, and the communities with respect to the Stadtland agreements.
No video.
Key goals to accomplish this year include initiating the development of community protocols and continuing with the Red Cross initiative, which includes basic first aid training for the northern communities and first.
Moving up. There. And now, how's that happen?
Disaster management training for the southern communities, as well as first responder training for the staff camp.
You just drag it on that.
Well, I've been working with.
There. Think we can kill the lights in the front?
Hi, my name is Janice Whitney, and I'm the Relations Manager for SGS. I'm the main point of contact for SGS, BC Hydro, and the communities with respect to the Stadtland agreements. Key goals to accomplish this year include initiating the development of community protocols and continuing with the Red Cross initiative, which includes basic first aid training for the northern communities and personal disaster management training for the southern communities, as well as first responder training for the staff camp. While I've been working with SGS, I often hear the term the spirit and intent of the agreements. It's unwritten, but I think it's important for us to understand as we move forward implementing the agreements. So I've asked Perry Redan to explain what the spirit intent means.
Hello, my name is Perry Redan. I've been asked to speak on the spirit intent of the Stadtland Hydro settlement agreement. After 20 years or so of negotiating, both parties realized that the environmental and political arena in the future is uncertain. With that in mind, both parties agree that we will operate hydro facilities within Staten territory in a safe, environmental manner, allowing for Statenium to be completely involved in all their operations. This is going into the future. Okay.
I also meet regularly with Jeremy Heim. He's the BC Hydro counterpart to my position, and we're both new to the role, and we meet at least once a month but communicate on an ongoing basis. And our implementation team is Jeremy Hyam, Ernest Arman, Bolt, and myself. And we also try to meet at least once a month to discuss any issues that we may have. I also meet with Statenium communities and their staff to discuss any questions that they may have about their community agreements or their Statenium agreement. So if you have any questions that you may have about your agreements, then I'm the person to contact, and you may contact me at the office. Phone numbers on the website, and my email's on the website as well, so feel free to contact me. If I don't have the answer to your questions, I'll find it.
Okay. Anything else to add?
No, just sign in. We need your email addresses so we can get the newsletters out to you.
All right, so next we have Jeremy, and you've got 20 minutes.
Oh, good. Why do you feel it's important to tell me how much?
I don't know. I like a lot for Christmas.
That's your timer.
Well, I noticed that Laura's following after me, and so I already let her know that I might go into her time a little. She was fine with that, so we're good.
So I thought this put it down here, so I have a comment.
You're down to 18 minutes, Jeremy?
Thank you.
Time's ticking.
Okay, here we go.
There we go.
I know Laura's time's ticking away here. I feel bad. All right, so as Ernest and Janice have said, my name is Jeremy Hyam. I'm Janice's counterpart in the implementation of the Statenium BC Hydro Agreement. And I've had the pleasure of working with Janice and Ernest and chiefs and councillors and administrative representatives from the Statenium Government Services and the Statenium Chiefs Council and the many communities that are under the umbrella of the Statenium Nation. As Alex said, we've gone out, we've had quite a number of different community meetings. So we've been out in about half the communities, and we have plans for more events. And it's been really good getting out and meeting the membership of the Statenium personally and making more contacts throughout the communities. And I'm really pleased in doing this work because I feel like we have a very strong collaborative team through the implementation team, And as Janice was saying, we work very closely together, both in terms of planning for events like this one, where we're speaking to community members off reserve based in Vancouver and the surrounding area, and also with BC Hydro staff. We've got a lot of great people, employees, and contractors who work with us, who are who already have very good relationships with the communities. But there's other staff who may be based in our Vancouver or Kamloops and other locations who don't have as much contact with the communities and don't know them as well, or they may be new and they don't understand the type of relationship that we have that's defined by the agreement. And so that's the role that Janice and Ernest and Al and I have, is to ensure that they understand how we deliver respect and how we deliver in terms of our commitments with the Stadtlium, and we maintain that relationship with Stadtlium and the communities that we work in. So we've been spending more time working with the communities. After Christmas, we're going to really direct our attention towards the BC Hydro different departments throughout in and around Stadtlium territory, and also back in Vancouver and Burnaby. So we've already spoken about the annual operations update. I won't speak about that anymore. The project notifications, I just wanted to touch on that. What we do for that is anytime there's any work that BC Hydro is doing in and around the communities, or if there is the potential for archaeological disruption to any cultural artifacts, then it's incumbent upon our project teams, whether it's a new project or whether it's existing operations and maintenance, to work with Stadtlium Government Services on that, and also the communities. So there's a dual reporting function to Stadtlium, and then also any communities that may be impacted. So on the archaeological front, we work very closely with Nadine Gray and Leanne and Chester, her team back at based in Tleekit, and we work very carefully to make sure that we are following their direction and we're doing our work appropriately. One of the other components that's been touched on, particularly by Ernest, is through the agreement, this opens up the potential for a great deal of business opportunities for Stadtlium owned, band-owned, or member-owned businesses working with BC Hydro. As you're very well aware, BC Hydro has a very heavy footprint within the Stadtlium territory, and that means that there's a lot of work that goes on within the territory. We've got generation facilities and reservoirs, transmission lines, distribution lines. We do vegetation management. So there's a lot of potential for work for Stadtlium businesses, and so we're taking a number of initiatives to try and increase the activity of Stadtlium business with BC Hydro. And one of the ways that we're doing that is working very closely with Stadtlium Government Services, that they engaged a consultant called Coho Contracting that worked with our generation operations people to define what are the different projects that are coming up now, several years down the road, or even like decades out, so that Stadtlium businesses can plan accordingly, build up their capacity, form joint ventures, hire the appropriate number of people, build up the type of expertise that they need to take advantage of those opportunities. We've also got a number of different employment and training programs, and we are working with Stadtlium and trying to dovetail with the efforts that Laura has as the education and training coordinator, to make sure that we can get more. This is a multi-generational agreement, and one of the main ideas under it is to get more Stadtlium people working for BC Hydro. We've got a lot of infrastructure in Stadtlium territory. It only makes sense that there's Stadtlium people working in your territory at the BC Hydro facilities. So one of our strong aims, our collaborative aims, is to have more Stadtlium people working for BC Hydro. There's a lot of different jobs. It's a huge company, and it ranges from administrative positions, accounting, management, specialists who work in environment and archaeology. There's opportunities in also in the specialized fields in the power line technicians. We've got programs for apprentices in winders and mechanics and many other different types of jobs. And we have a special department in BC Hydro, and there's some brochures just on the side there that identify some of those different opportunities. And the two key people are Jeannie Granmer and Val Monkman, who work closely with Aboriginal people who are interested in working with BC Hydro to try and find those opportunities. There's also opportunities that for people that are perhaps younger or maybe less skilled or have less experience. One of the great opportunities is the outreach group, where we've got an energy conservation group that goes out and does power smart activities at baseball games and soccer games and CFL, community events all across the province. And one of the things that they've told me in the discussions that I've had with that group is they're not dialed into different Aboriginal events, and they're really interested in participating in different types of Aboriginal events so that they can provide that exposure about how to save money on your power bill. But also, it's a really great opportunity to show young staffing people in both off reserve and in the communities how there's that kind of opportunity. It might be something that people are interested in doing, and it's a good window into BC Hydro because you get exposed to a lot of the different types of work that BC Hydro does. So that's something as well that might be good. And I'm sure there's a lot of young staffing people that have a lot of experience speaking in front of their communities, learning the traditions and that the type of leadership activities that are traditionally normal within staffing are a great type of foundation for the kind of work that an outreach coordinator would do. So that's something I hope that you might consider. Like I said, the brochures are on the side there. If anyone wants to speak to me afterwards, I'm happy to talk to you at any time. And I invite you to contact those people. They're there for you to contact. And if you have any questions, by all means, contact them or myself. Let's see, did I get everything? Yes. Okay. So just a couple of further points before I cut too much into Laura's time, because I'm not sure where we're at here. One of the other things that we're working on is our making sure that BC Hydro has the correct property rights for our facilities, transmission lines, and the generation facilities and the distribution lines. So when I talk about transmission lines, those are the high voltage, big power lines that you see by the side of the highway, the ones on the big towers. The distribution lines are the smaller ones, just the power poles in neighborhoods, and those are the type of lines that provide power to your house, to this building, your community centers, your administration buildings, things like that. So in the past, for very old property right instruments that BC Hydro had on reserves, they were more generic. It was like, okay, here's a map of the reserve, and BC Hydro, you have the right to do your work on that reserve. So it was very broad in scope, and it gave us more rights than we needed to conduct our business in a way that we wanted to, and it gave away rights that the bands more than they needed to give away. So what we've done is we've developed more specific permits and right-of-way agreements that define very specifically what are our obligations and what are our rights and what are we able to do. And we want to limit it to being able to provide good service to our customers in the band communities. And so that means that we work very closely with the band councils and their administrations to make sure that we're putting our new distribution lines where they want us to, along the existing roads, and we work with the band councils and their administration when they're planning new subdivisions or new facilities on the reserves. I've got a notice here that I've got less than 5 minutes now, so I've only got one. Looks like I'm getting a reputation here. I am. For water use planning, we have a number of discussions that are ongoing with the communities that are based around the generation facilities, so Shalaf, Hoyston, Cleekit, Sequawash, and Quaqua, where we're talking about bringing the level of the Downton Reservoir down. It is the reservoir that's behind the LaJoy Dam, so that's up in the far reaches of the Bridge River watershed, up around Raylorn and up in there. And the purpose for that is that we've noticed some excessive seepage on the top part of the dam, which was built in a second phase. And so in order to be proactive, what we've decided to do is bring the level of the reservoir down. And in part, that's because we've identified that if there were to be an extreme earthquake, that's a part of the dam that we feel we need to do more work on. So in advance of doing that work, we're bringing the level of the reservoir down. So we're talking with those communities, Staten and Chiefs Council, about what kind of impacts we would foresee happening through that, and then developing monitoring programs and appropriate mitigation around that. The other component that we're looking at in terms of the water use planning is the working together with Statlium to define what is the appropriate flow of water going through the lower Bridge River below the Terzaghi Dam. When that dam was initially built, there was no water that flowed out of it. And so all of the water that was in the Bridge River that ended up going into the Fraser River was from the feeder streams like the Yalakim and all the different creeks that drain into the Bridge River. Then we went to 3 cubic meters per second release, and now we're at 6. And for each of those different amounts, we've been looking at what are the type of impacts for fish habitat, fish productivity, looking at other various cultural values. And what we're trying to determine is what would be the best amount to benefit Statlium. And a lot of it revolves around fish productivity. That's one of the key aspects, and habitat. And so we've got a lot of data, a lot of years of scientific study looking at the 0 amount. We've got a lot looking at the 3 cubic meters per second. And we've got about 3 years of data that the scientists have collected for the 6 cubic meters per second. We're going to go to the water comptroller, who is the government official who we have to get the necessary permits from to determine what would be the correct level, or we may decide together to go and say we need more time to study this 6 cubic meters per second. So again, if you have any questions around that, that's a very quick summary and description of some very sophisticated and complicated science that is going on right now with both BC Hydro and Statlium scientists. And I think my time's pretty much up. Or maybe if there's any quick questions, I'm happy to answer those. And if not, please find me afterwards. I'd be happy to entertain any questions. And thank you very much for coming out. I've met some of you already, and I look forward to meeting the rest of you through the course of the afternoon. The floor is up.
Oh, I'll put a couple videos first.
Okay.
No together. So maybe take 2 minutes, grab some food, because lunch is coming, so we've got to eat all this up before lunch comes.
Can we done?
Yeah.
I see.
Are you,
Okay, I,
It's a few minutes.
So, do you live in Vancouver or where? Yes.
Probably do a couple videos and then we'll let off yours off. You'll then, which meeting you're He's in the process we're trying to get pre-screening. Yeah, and you know what, it starts early, because there's like a lot of these positions are very technical, so it starts like high school, these kids visits. And then, usually set skills.
Yeah.
Like that. It's
Sounds good.
but it's, you know, there's definitely a lot of smart people. Part of it is just. A lot of focus in the past is on, those sides.
The past few times.
We got to see.
Oh, the one, I was the only person, so. That's from the other side. The north side. Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's still there. So, but it hasn't and then water comes into the sea, and then it goes down. And then it's converted water, water converted into sea, which takes it out to the great.
Sure.
Water flows to the sea.
Everybody looking on the floor. All right, somebody's got a phone plug in the back? You actually have to move it.
Oh, it's not.
Hi, Nora. All right, I think we should get started because it's showtime.
Hello, I'm Ernest Garland, Implementation Manager for South Government Services. My responsibility here is the hydrodynamic for the water side of the asking online. We have been looking at buildings, improving our relationship with East Hydro.
Can you hear that?
We started that process. We also need good governance for South Government Services to make sure that we have accountability for informed decision making. We support unity of the nation. We have clear organization, roles, responsibilities. We're a learning organization and we're results-based. I'd like to share some of the results that we've achieved in the water use project and with our watershed projects. Thank you.
The watershed portal essentially was a deliverable within the settlement agreement, and it came about in response to a need for a way to hide share information with families. And so what we're doing right now is we're working with the end goal in mind, and we're going back to develop the processes and procedures needed in order to reach our goal.
One is there are 16 monitoring programs that were worked to establish local resources following the completion of the bridge system water use plan in March of 2011. The MPC is a new arrangement for BC Hydro that creates efficiencies in terms of program delivery, capacity building for BC Hydro, and staffing.
The portal is an online web-based mapping tool. Right now, it covers the entire Southern territory and it contains only publicly available information. So that includes watershed boundaries, streams, mineral licenses, claims, that type of information. The beauty of the portal is that it can contain whatever information Southern wants to see there.
One of the changes that SERS made for that staffing, SERS maximized economic opportunities and created economics of scale due to its knowledge of sustainable land and resource use, and its relationship with strategic partners who recognize staffing territorial authority.
The big changes I think that we see in the nation was really been helped for us to become organized. We've done a lot of work in becoming a partner, but also be able to deliver our obligations and agreement.
It's given the company a chance to share more broadly across all the operating divisions the importance of doing the work with First Nations, in particular in the staffing territory. It provided managers with an opportunity to say, this is important, it's a long-term relationship, and please feel free to share openly with staff the plans that you have and the operating project plans.
We're doing strategic planning now, more so than we really have in the past. So I think positive changes are there for the nation.
It will also ensure that spelling values are protected and that the communities can continue to be stewards of them.
In my opinion, the agreement has put in place a basis of fundamental relationships that we both strive for, staffing and BC Hydro. That's been an extreme pleasure to see how far they've progressed, both internally and with BC Hydro, and looking forward to the next year in the quality segment.
Okay, the next one is all right, next we'll have culture and heritage.
My name is Nadine Gray, and I'm the project archaeologist for the Heritage and Culture team. And my team is responsible for implementing the archaeological management plan within the Hydro Agreement. And a lot of our responsibilities come down to mapping and documenting heritage sites within the territory. And we do that through ground surveys, subsurface testing, mapping the sites with new technology, and then also increasing our capacity with new skills. One of the main things that we try to do is communicate with the communities some of the concerns that we have about hydro's impact in the territory. And many of the communities were able to identify sites that had been impacted by hydro prior to the agreement. So our focus has really been on mapping the sites that we know were impacted by hydro, and then assessing to see if BC Hydro's current operations will be impacting sites further. Right now we have about 200 archaeology sites that we've been working at, and in those sites we are finding a range of artifacts and a range of different types of evidence for Stratland heritage.
Well, my name is Chester Allen. I work for the Stratland Government Services and the Heritage and Cultural team. My job is the Heritage Field Technician. Why am I glad to work with the SGS? To preserve and collect our history, to collect the artifacts, and to gain knowledge of past living environments. Also to assist each community in heritage concerns, and also give me a good opportunity to visit each community.
In Stratland territory, it's very much a living landscape, so people are utilizing and accessing sites that have heritage in them. So we take a cultural landscape approach to our work, and we recognize Stratland placings, spiritual sites, and significant sites, and try to negotiate that with industry to illustrate that it is very much a living history here in the territory. One of the upcoming projects that the Heritage and Culture team will be undertaking is the land use and occupancy study. And our task for that really is to collate and to map the collective knowledge of the Stratland Nation. For the land use and occupancy, we will be relying on archival or past information that has been collected in various forms. But the other really important thing to do is to interview and to interact with current knowledge keepers to identify geographic locations of the cultural, economic, social, and ceremonial significant areas. And we would record the use in that location with as much time depth as possible. So it's a nice combination of archaeological information and current information that helps us to put this onto a GIS platform and create an interactive system where we can look at one particular area in the territory and see the range of uses. And this has important implications for title and rights, for industry accessing those areas, and also to create a platform for cultural awareness and education that we can use in the school systems. After we've completed our fieldwork, and that includes our artifact recovery and our mapping, another important task is to bring that information into the office and complete our artifact analysis and finalize our maps. The data that we're recovering from that really helps us to complete the picture of Stratland heritage. So the artifact analysis can include the dates of the stone tools or the other organic materials that we're able to recover. And we need to enter those into a database system and then submit those to the archaeology branch so that the sites are registered and have the full documentation up to today's standards. Again.
For anyone who knows me not being able to talk for hours on end, it was amazing that Levi could actually capture a moment that I could speak it longer. I just wanted to keep that for all time.
As you can see, some had more fun with their presentation than others. All right, we'll go to this land resources one.
name is Dr. Sue Sangers, and I'm a landscape ecologist working on contract for Southern Government Services. And my role is to help deliver the best combination of science and traditional knowledge into the decision-making process for resources in the Southern Territory. And grizzly bears form a key part of the work I do here in the Lands and Resources Department. So when we go into the field, we're looking for evidence that grizzly bears are in an area. So we'll go to a herbaceous meadow or avalanche sheet where bears feed, and typically on the edge of this feeding, you can find a marked tree. This is where the bears are running and eating hair and collar. By just pulling it like that and putting it into an envelope, and then we can send this to the lab and find out which grizzly bear is this marking. One of the things we have learned in our work with grizzly bear is how important the grizzly bear is as an umbrella species for the Southern culture. So when you look at the diet of the grizzly bear, which we learned about by having collared bears, where we have GPS collars and get locations of these animals, and then you can see what the bear has done and look at the food it eats. When you look at those key grizzly bear foods and you look at the Southern traditional diet, there's an incredible overlap between bears and people. And so we can look at what's happening with grizzly bear and say, if the bears are having troubles surviving on the landscape, then the cultural basis, the landscape basis for the culture may also be at risk. So we put a lot of energy into trying to understand what's happening with grizzly bears as a result of that.
We are grizzly bear country here, and what Charlie is going to know is the bear deterrence rates. There are courses that we give. You can call us at the Southern Government Office and we'll do the courses.
So when BC Hydro flooded the Red River Valley and the dams were put in, that took away a bunch of really critical habitat for all kinds of wildlife. We lost really important valley bottom, river, streamside habitat. We lost prime grizzly bear habitat, movement corridors across that valley. And so the floods took away all of that land. It's buried under the reservoir now. And so in order to sustain wildlife, we have to be looking at what happens around these dams. How do we sustain the various animals that lost their homes as a result of the flooding of the river? One of the things we do frequently is work with elders, and repeatedly when we talk about lands and resources with the elders, they'll talk about water and how important water is from the very top of the mountain all the way to the valley bottom. How is it that our water is going to be sustained for the future? What are the impacts on water? In addition, we have started a project with the elders on plants. We've been asking them to come with us in the field and to onto the land and talk about the plants and their importance and the different ways in which plants are used, their significance in the language and their significance in the culture itself. All of these things tie together on the landscape. So how do we plan for the future generations by taking into account what we know from the science on these various elements, what we know from the elders and from the teachings, and how do we bring that information forward to communities and to the chiefs so the decisions they make about resources and development will be decisions based on the facts and based on the best available information. That's largely what we do.
So the next one is the education training update. It's something that carries a lot of weight and information about the education training program. Education training program covers a lot of information and a lot of different criterion areas. So this video will sum up majority of education training, and then I'll just fill in some of the gaps on what needs to be more clarified. I am the Stratton Education Training Program Manager for the Stratton Government Services. The Stratton Education Training Framework has a shared vision to improve and to increase education and training outcomes for all Stratton comparable to other British Columbians. The overall objectives of the Stratton Education Training Program Framework provides direction and guidance to strategic planning and management of the education training program. The Stratton Education Training objectives guides the research and planning for the Stratton Education Training vision of the Stratton. The Stratton Education Training Advisory Committee, represented by the technical support team, are consisted of Stratton appointed community members from each of the Stratton bands. At the nation table, the Stratton Education Training Advisory Committee will meet on a monthly basis to discuss any concerns, ideas, planning, strategies for implementing and ensuring the continuance and the success of meeting each one of these objectives. The strategic partners of the Stratton Education Training Program are including the Stratton Education coordinators, community members, government corporations, organizations, any partnerships, including BC Hydro and or other entities within the Stratton Nation. As SET program manager, my job and my role is to ensure that there's a reciprocal accountability of the community engagement with the Stratton Chiefs Council, Stratton Education Training Advisory Committee, along with the Stratton partnerships that we may have. So we're looking at the overall objectives of the Stratton Education Training Framework. All lifelong learning is consistent from prenatal education, preschool, kindergarten to grade 7, high school, post-secondary, skills and employment, organizational skills and development as well. Now that we have identified the objectives of the Stratton Education Training Framework, what is now being worked on by the Stratton Education Training Advisory Committee, along with myself, we are now working on developing a workbook where we identify each one of the objectives and identify what the indicators are. What are the indicators? What do we need to do to improve and to reach the objectives of each one of these goals? And from that direction, we are then able to identify what strategies and what partnerships do we need to establish to ensure that these objectives are followed through and met. The Stratton Government Services is also working with BC Hydro on a community economic opportunity for Stratton Nation. The Skills Gap Analysis Project is important as it is identifying the needs and the gaps within the Stratton territory. If we are able to identify the gaps within the Stratton Nation, we would then be able to identify what the needs are and what partnerships are or could be in the near future. The signing of the Stratton Education Training Leadership Accord will demonstrate the belief that lifelong learning is a collective responsibility. We will build upon existing Stratton capacity and strengthen opportunities for collaboration and partnership between individual communities and the nation as a whole. The Accord acknowledges the importance of Stratton governance in supporting healthy communities. The actions set out in the Accord and subsequent goals and objectives will reflect this reality. For generations, the Stratton have lived as a self-governing, self-sufficient economy of people. In harmony with their environment that has met all their needs, education was a process of living according to the values and beliefs and formed a basis of skills and knowledge sought that ensured the development of healthy, balanced individuals, families, and communities. Stratton education is a commitment to improving achievement for all learners by providing equitable opportunities for all to succeed and to contribute to society in a meaningful manner. We here at the Stratton Government Services, through the Stratton Education Training Program, are committed to working together to achieve success for all learners
so that the lifelong learning process of realizing the potential is within reach of all Stratton community lifelong learners.
Okay, so one of the key important, well, the significant document that's being worked on right now is the Stratton Education Leadership Accord Agreement. This is an accord agreement that's amongst all the Stratton chiefs, so it's a tribal agreement. And it's really essential for moving the nation forward in meeting the objectives from prenatal education throughout lifelong learning. And so it's a collective approach to building capacity at a nation level so that we can start to identify and focus on the needs for the nation to commit to improve education, training, and employment outcomes for the nation at a nation level. So if we can build on the existing strengths and structures within each of its individual communities, recognizing that each individual community also has autonomy and governance structure, then we will be able to continue to move forward as a nation at a nation level. So it's an aim to improve and to move forward with the 7 objectives. In the handout that's available, the 7 objectives are identified under Stratton Education Training Program. And so some of the communities we still have yet to engage with to get the signatures of the approved leadership from the communities, which we are working still and hoping to engage and to have that solidified in January in the new year. The other thing that is really important regarding the education training program is the Stratton Education Training Advisory Committee. The Stratton Education Training Advisory Committee consists of each representative from each of the Stratton 11 communities. And so the whole intent and purpose is to look and identify the 7 objectives from prenatal to organizational systems and development, to start working and compiling on research so that we can better find sources and ways of benchmarking opportunities for increasing education outcomes and as well as employment and training. There's another project that's been currently active right now. It's a skills gap analysis project. It's a partnership that we have with the Lower Stratton Tribal Council. And I believe Mike is coming in this afternoon, and so he will provide an update on what that's going to look like and engaging with the community. So we are currently working on building each community profiles and hoping that on-reserve and off-reserve community members will be able to participate in the survey so that we can better identify the demographics of the data from age, language, education, and employment so that we can have consensus data that is more accurate. There has been a skills gap analysis consensus that was compiled and completed. A profile was developed on each individual community, but it's based on Squamish-Lowell Regional District. And so, but that doesn't just encompass the Stratton population, that actually includes all Aboriginals within the Squamish-Lowell Regional District. And it actually doesn't tap into the lower Stratton, I believe, the communities. And so the data is not as accurate. So if we have the ability to make contact points of contact, which we will be doing to engage with the communities and to be able to have surveys and to find out more and to clear up that data. There was my mind just went blank, a framework that was developed. It was a research project that was developed and completed by Lara Nixon. And from that framework, those 7 objectives were identified. And those 7 objectives are the key areas for the Stratton Education Training Program. Each one of these objectives are going to be further identified and studied. I'm working on a workbook which identifies each objective and developing a 20-year sustainability plan. So each one of the objectives will be identifying what are the needs, what are the indicators, what are the critical factors, what do we need to do to create change, and what are the engagement strategies, and also looking at what kind of learning opportunities exist within our communities, home, workplace, and even on the land. Looking at language and culture as well, because language is critically endangered, and so that's something that's included in all parts of the 7 objectives. And so the data that was completed from the framework document that was completed by Lara, the consensus data in that dates back to 2006. And so in 2006, there was only like 37% of Aboriginal students that had completed high school. And so from that 37% of students, how many of them actually obtained and pursued into post-secondary education, which is only 9%. From 9% of those students that have entered into university, only 3% of those actually completed their degrees and their certificate programs. So if we're looking at those kind of statistics from 2006, and then looking at them, what they look like in 2011, we know that we need to improve, and you know, we're definitely facing some challenges in education and training, but where there are challenges, we believe that there are opportunities to engage and to intersect and to find new ways, possibility, find out what the gaps are, finding out where the fallout is, and as soon as we are able to identify that and do all and complete the research required for that, which there is a lot of research, and so then we'll be able to develop more strategic plans. So right now, the most important activity that I'm doing is research. And so each one of those 7 objectives will be developed, and basically they will have chapters. So the videos, the videography work that was completed by Levi, we will be doing more of that because we think that's another way of engaging through emotional community connection, identifying with family, place, location. And so that's a good way of educating and informing the nation of the updates of what's going on. And so the overall objective and the intent is to becoming a healthy community, spiritually, socially, intellectually, and physically. But also we want to increase the community involvement through opportunities of videos, presentations, community and engagement, and to increase understanding and awareness of what lifelong learning is. So we want to be able to improve engagement not only with community, but also with our elders from the prenatal education all the way up to our elderly. And so that we can start building and establishing healthy relationships, and which also includes entities. So we have entities within our communities. They may be RCMP, the Ministry, Social Development, BC Hydro, Lower Scotland Tribal Education Authority Boards. Whatever these entities are, we want to be able to start looking at partnerships and engagement so that we can start building capacity as a nation for the Schlattmilch. So we want to be able to increase opportunities so that we may be able to develop respect for the nation at the nation level. And that's my presentation. Is there any questions?
On the maps, I see you have the names of these different places. I'm off reserve and I don't know very much of my language. Is there a map that has the English names for those?
There actually is. There's Nora will be doing a presentation later on as well. And so they're actually working on a really amazing project that's like a story map. And so that's something very educational and informative, and connecting to place and people in the territory. But there was one thing that Ernest just reminded me about, and that's actually the Schlattmilch Scholarship Lifelong Bursary Awards Program. So that has been released and opened and it started. The first intake was in September. The second intake is in January to February. So if you know any family members, community members, Schlattmilch, and even or Aboriginal community members that are connected to the Schlattmilch, because we're not discrediting or dishonoring non-Schlattmilch community members that are connected to our people, to our territory and families. There are scholarships that are available and open. So there are 2 graduate level scholarships. Those are $5,000 awards that will go to post-graduates. So those are master's students, doctorate students, and then there are 3 undergraduate scholarships of $1,000 each. Those are for students that are enrolled in post-secondary education in any field. And there are also 2 health and career scholarship bursary awards that will go to any health career students that are enrolled full-time in a health program.
Is this for full-time students only, or is?
They have to be enrolled full-time post-secondary education.
Yeah, I have a question. Why is it called lifelong learning? To
to me, I work and I would like to go to school part-time to upgrade myself. And if it's lifelong learning, then there should be something off in that area.
Actually, there is an area, if you look at the scholarship bursary award application form and the guideline, it's on our Schlaffen website. And on that Schlaffen website, there's also, there's a category, there's health careers, there's post-secondary, and I believe it's a community or professional development. So if you are working to thrive for personal development that would benefit the nation, then that is something that you could apply for under. And lifelong learning is something that's really symbolic, because lifelong learning not only encompasses academic learning in post-secondary education or a training field, it also encompasses family, language, culture, community, spirituality. So it's there's informal learning that comes from your family's, grandparents, spiritual, language, cultural stories, songs, dances. That whole area is informal learning. And then your formal learning is what you're learning through education structures or systems, workplace, professional development. So lifelong learning starts from prenatal education. It's actually preconception. And so starts with your health, the health of oneself, the health of the partner, bringing life into the world, and then it continues on basically your lifelong learning until you 60 under. So it's something that's really symbolic because it's never ending. And so lifelong learning is something that we are acknowledging and recognizing because there are needs from that whole life spectrum. And the other thing too, with that scholarship bursary awards program is that skills and training isn't a part of that scholarship bursary award. And the reason why that's not a part of it is because we are currently engaging into opportunities with skills and training and employment. So that would be covered in that area.
And another question too is on language. When you're in your own community, it's easier to have access to learning our language. But being brought up in urban, there's nowhere for us to learn our language or connect to it somehow. Is there any way possible to have the language be taught, say in Vancouver or in urban areas?
Those are things that we will be looking at. So one of the things that I'm working on is the research. So finding out what the needs are. So that's a need. That's identified as a need. It's a critical factor. It's something that needs to be addressed. And so looking at that, I would then be able to start looking at what are the partnerships? What kind of partnerships do we need to establish so that we can provide language and cultural learning programs off reserve for off reserve community members, because our language is critically endangered. I believe the youngest fluent speaker in Schlaffenpitch is 64 years old. And so we're looking at that to be recognized, but there's also an app that you can download. I know it might not be applicable on everybody's phone, but it's something that is, it is accessible, and there's First Voices online. And going back again to Nora, that department, they are working on a story portal, language. It's going to incorporate language, culture, and education in there. So I'll be tying in with that as well. So that would be another way of learning about territory, place names, etc.
I heard UBC also has language.
Yeah, so TRU, SFU, UBC also provide language classes, but again, those are based on funding and or enrollment as well. Brandy?
Well, my question was echoing Pam's as well. It was the language.
I know,
been here for a couple of years.
Brandy's been on me for years. And I was just actually approached by USCLS about another language initiative, an opportunity for a mentorship. And I'm not sure exactly where that's going yet so far, so I haven't received any more feedback on what the update is on that. Yes?
Because seeing it is more easier than learning it instead of reading it. Well, even reading is good, but I feel because we were taught
long-term vision? Is that going to be any?
So that's one of the things that I didn't state was actually, it was stated in the video, was that holistic learning. So holistic learning is something that focuses on symbols like pictographs, stories, maps, images. It's oral tradition, storytelling, it's place location, identifying with places and communities or ceremonies. So holistic learning will be encompassing all of those areas. So it'll be connecting from communities to elders to stories to engagement. And so the lifelong learning model for the Shakam Education Training Framework and each one of those objectives, including language and culture, will be holistic and it will be inclusive.
So say if I was to, because I have very little knowledge of my language, if I was to go to finish off my school and get a teacher or even a teacher, I would be able to go back home and hopefully help out. Like, just wondering if that's something to look into for myself.
Yeah, definitely. If we can bring people home, that's what we want to do. We want to bring our people home, but we want to be able to make sure that we have services and employment and training opportunities so that when you do come home that you have jobs as well.
My turn. I'm Muriel Hassel. I'm from Wet Nation. So welcome to Vancouver. We had some comments on over stuff that are available on the internet. That's all well and good. But there are some families out here, such as mine, who can't afford the internet. So how do we work that out? And if you were to have somebody here in the city, I prefer you buy a building and put some people to work out here for our own people instead of keeping them lost in the shuffle as they are now. I volunteered here in Vancouver for 25 years. And that's our most difficult challenge, keeping our people together and teaching our children what our grandparents left us. We don't have a proper place to do it. We're always being shoved and pushed and told that we don't belong here. I face that myself every day. And that's a hardship because I don't have any place else to go. I'm here trying to get my education in the hospitality industry to do this. I can do this. I can't finish my school because I'm having a hard struggle keeping my grandchildren out of foster care. I have a 15-year-old now who's taken up the running away. And that's not my fault, but I'm being blamed for it because I'm the head of the family. So all this paperwork, my own chief came and gave me a whole lot of paperwork too. But you bring it on the same day you're here. Could we have somebody in the city to ship it to and have us pick it up at that place? That makes it so much easier. We have 15 vans in that family. We could fit 15 people to work. We need a place that has proper child minding that doesn't cost us extra. We can't afford extra. We're always being told that we have to be satisfied with what we have. This is our country. Why do we have to keep pushing and shoving? I'm on income assistance raising my grandchildren right there. But I'm not the only one. I have 4 relatives that are homeless. And we're still being told we don't belong here. That's the hardest thing. They tell us to learn our language. They tell us to keep our culture. They tell us to keep our family. And on the other hand, we have the government taking our children because somebody said something. They don't come and investigate. They have us going through the system. For 2 years now, I'm on the second run with the court. They apprehended my children 3 years ago, and I'm still going through the same thing. And I'm telling my children and my neighbors, we deserve better. We do. This is our country. So when you do all this paperwork and you offer us all this stuff, make sure we have a foundation here in the city. In Jesus' place, I believe they charge $200 a day. The catering business. I know how the program works. I don't keep quiet. That's not what I'm here for. My grandmother taught me better. And for those of you who don't know, my great grandmother, it was Matilda Joe, and she passed on with 116. So that's what I carry on my right-hand shoulder. On my left-hand shoulder, I carry my mom because she fought for foster care and education system on the reserve and for a better housing. You think about that and you think, and don't make a merry-go-round. I'm asking you to stop the merry-go-round and start performing what we're asking for. I'm not the only one here. We're all trying to get better. And then when we go home, we still have to struggle because we struggle to them again. That's my home. But I'm still a stranger because I'm not here. So I thank you all for listening to me. I'm really quite busy today. But whatever you do, I would like for you to stay healthy and have a safe journey.
I'd like to thank you for sharing and your heartfelt words and concerns, and it's something that's very important, and we can all identify with that story and from our own personal experiences from our communities and our families. And that goes back to the Education Leadership Accord Agreement, where we are motivated and being proactive to build capacity within the Staaten for the Staaten on reserve and off reserve. We recognize that we are stricken with poverty, and we definitely have our hardships and our economic and financial struggles within our communities, in our own communities and families, within our own homes, and even off reserve. And we know that the availability of resources and supports in social and health are, difficult to access and to have that kind of support in place, socially, emotionally, mentally, physically, and spiritually. And so when we're thinking about moving forward as a nation, the whole initiative actually is to build that and to strengthen that and to recognize and learn about all the gaps. And those are a lot of gaps that she identified, from health to education to poverty to economic to sustainability. Those are all the areas that need to be addressed and are working on. That's the kind of stuff that we are working on. And part of that is building that governance structure to solidify what it is that we need to do to close those gaps, to identify what those needs are, so that we can start changing the education, employment, and training outcomes for the nation on reserve and off reserve. And we recognize that, many community members move off reserve because there are no jobs at home. There are no homes. There's not enough space. There's not enough availability for our own families and community members to stay home within the nation. So they leave their communities to sustain, to support, to provide for their families or themselves. So we recognize that, we understand that, and you know, we have this big vision to improve education, training, outcomes, and to be able to fill employable positions that are comparable to other British Columbians. We believe that we can sustain and we can achieve. And this is something that's really huge. It's something that's big. This agreement with BC Hydro is something that's, you know, it's the biggest in all of BC. And so this is an opportunity that we have to be able to develop and to plan so that we can create a sustainability, to not create, but make it a reality that we can live and experience. And this is something that our children and our grandchildren will be able to carry on. They will have better opportunities than probably what we all have experienced growing up in our communities and families. And definitely we want them to succeed and to achieve more and to have more than what we have been able to obtain. So that, our lunch is ready.
Good. Take a break for lunch. We're thinking half hour, and that should be good enough. And then we'll carry on with a couple of things after lunch. We have our friend Matt Rising. We'll talk about the skills project and some of the preliminary findings. And then we'll get to Natural Resources presentation, Lita and Laura. Go.